So how do I know if my medical cannabis is safe? That's what we'll discuss today on MCPATV. Cliff, tell me a little bit about what Steep Hill, Mississippi, what you're going to be doing to make sure that our patients have safe, clean products on the shelves. And so I'd love to hear more about that.
So in each state where testing is required to help ensure the safety of the product, there are certain tests that have to be performed. And those need to be accredited by an international standards organization called ISO. And to achieve that, it's really helpful if you have testing methodologies that have already been vetted and approved. And so we have that intellectual property from Steep Hill Corporate in California that we'll deploy here. So we'll have our chemist, we'll have our support team, we'll have our instruments, but we'll be using their methods to test. And people say, well, what are you testing for? I think everyone assumes the logical, we're going to test for the active ingredient Delta-9 THC, the primary ingredient most people think about, but not the only ingredient. We'll test for the potency for that. That's going to be required by the state. We'll test for the terpene profile. Terpenes are fascinating products. They are the chemicals in marijuana that gives it its fragrance. Whether that be floral, whether it be woodsy, whether it be something less appealing that some strains of marijuana have, the terpenes give it that. But terpenes also have pharmacologic effect. And so we'll be measuring which terpenes are present. The various terpenes work with the Delta-9 THC and other ingredients to create what some people call an entourage effect. They go along with it and they tweak that Delta-9 THC so that some strains become more useful for PTSD and anxiety, and some become more useful for nausea. So that some become more effective to help address pain. So we'll test for that. So those are the two beneficial things in the product we're testing for.
How about other cannabinoids?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Delta-8, Delta-10, the CBD, CBG, CBN, we'll test for all of those.
And those are all very beneficial to the human body. And you mentioned the entourage effect. There are many studies that show the benefits of potentially a lower THC with a higher cannabidiol in it. And so, this is something that will be very helpful to our patients and, and to help them know what will work best for them.
Well, everyone can make a mistake in how they understand something, but just looking at Delta-9 THC in a medical cannabis product is a little bit short-sighted. It's the other components that also really affect how the product's going to work for them and benefit them.
That's so true. Yes, we hear that all the time.
But there can be bad things in cannabis as well. And the challenge that we face in a lot of the country is if nobody's testing it, for instance, in an illegal market, in an illicit or black market, we don't know what else is in the cannabis or marijuana. There can be things like pesticides. And so in Mississippi, we'll be testing for 60 some odd pesticides. And there should be none of those present or it can't be sold. We'll be testing for heavy metals like lead and arsenic and others. Those are bad. And they can be in water. We've heard about lead being in drinking water. So we'll test for that to make sure that nothing from the soil or water has been accumulated in the plant and could harm somebody. It's rare, but it does need to be tested for. Most cultivators are excellent in making sure they exclude all of that, but while we're testing, let's check it, right?
Absolutely.
And so that's a regulation. And we'll also check for things like bacteria, fungus, mold. We don't want that in the product. Those are harmful.
They are.
And if the flower, as most people recognize the product, if the flower is made into drops or vape cartridges or edibles or things like that, there's some solvents, chemicals that get used in that process. And for those processed products, we'll also look for residual solvents to make sure they're not present in a way that could hurt people.
Yeah. Gosh, Cliff, this just really puts my mind as a patient advocate and the mother of a patient at ease in knowing that these products are going to be safe and they're going to be clean. We'll know how much THC is in them and other cannabinoids and terpenes. And so all I can see is a win-win for the patients on that. and that it also will help, the program for people to understand and see that, wow, the companies like Steep Hill are doing everything that they can to actually make sure that our patients are receiving safe, clean products.
Well, and here's what's fascinating. As a pharmacist, I'll give you this too. There will be more information available on a package of medical marijuana about the minor or inert ingredients than there is on a lot of FDA-approved medications that we can buy. I mean, over the last few years, we've started to see on over-the-counter products where there's added information about what the inactive ingredients are, but that wasn't there 20 or 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. And here we're going to start with medical marijuana or medical cannabis. We're going to label a lot of those ingredients from the get-go so people can make good decisions about what they put in their body.
Yeah. I know even for like my son, he's intolerant to a lot of different chemicals, ingredients. And so it's really important for people to be able to see what is actually in the product, especially even if it's an edible, because, food intolerances are a really big thing. And for Austin, if it were a brownie, he would not be able to eat it because there's gluten, he's allergic to chocolate. And so, it's really great to know that all of that will be listed out. Tell me a little bit also about the COA. There's a certificate of analysis.
Yeah, so I talked a few minutes ago about the ingredients we're testing for that we want to make sure are there and in the levels we want. Mm-hmm. And the ingredients we're testing for that we want to make sure are not there.
Yes.
Things that might cause harm or side effects. And so with each product that's sold, there's a certificate of analysis that a laboratory like ours generates, and they share that back through the state's database that they have, and the cultivator gets that information, the State Department of Health gets that information, we have that information, and there's a tracking system that says for this batch of flowered cannabis or for this batch of edibles or this batch of drops, this is what we know is in it. And then in most states, what you see is a QR code on the product at the dispensary so the patient can scan it with their smartphone and pop up a copy of that COA, that certificate of analysis, and they can say, yep, it says that there is 20% Delta-9 THC. The lab tested it, and that's right. It says that there are these terpenes in it. The lab tested it, and that's right. It's a level of information that consumers get here that they don't get for a lot of other things that they put in their body.
Yeah,
we certainly don't get that for all the food we eat.
No, we do not.
We don't get that for a lot of the over-the-counter medicines or even some prescription drugs that we take.
Yeah. And that is something that I always liked when Austin was in Colorado and we would go to the dispensary, is that we were able to use that QR code and to pull it up and know exactly what was in there and to know how much THC or CBD or CBG. And so it's really important for patients to know that and to be able to see. And through Steep Hill, Mississippi, they'll have factual information to look into on those COAs. And so we're excited about having that part and for what you and your company with Steep Hill, Mississippi are doing for our patients. Cliff, thank you so much for joining us today. And I especially thank you, our viewers, for joining MCPATV. I hope that you found this episode not only to be informative, but reassuring to know that our patients will be receiving safe, clean products because of testing. Please join us on our next episode, and to learn more information about MCPA, go to our website, follow us on social media, and of course, please share this video with your friends and family.